the backstage. In the meantime, because we're running late, behind schedule right now, so we would like to take the presentation from Damilola, the role of forensic sciences in clarifying the fate of missing persons, while we try to patch the Commissioner of Police in to the backstage. Thank you.
Damilola has a Bachelor's of Science in Biochemistry and a Master's in Forensic Sciences Toxicology. She currently is the Forensic Program Assistant for the International Committee of the Red Cross in Nigeria.
Hey, good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon. So my name is Damilola Fagbohun. I am the Forensic Program Assistant for the ICRC. Sorry, 1 minute, please. Okay, I'm just going to continue. So I am Damilola Fagbohun. I am the Forensic Program Assistant for the ICRC, and together with my colleague Juan Manuel, we're able to prepare this presentation. And it's about the role of forensic sciences in clarifying the fate of missing persons. Now, the International Committee of the Red Cross is an impartial, neutral, and independent organization whose exclusive humanitarian mission is to protect the lives and dignity of victims of armed conflicts and other situations of violence and disasters, and to provide them with assistance. And the ICRC was established in 1863, that's roughly 158 years ago. And our work is based on the Geneva Convention of 1949 and the additional principles and statutes, which is basically to encourage government authorities to adapt the international humanitarian laws to their national laws, and to, apart from adapting it, and also to encourage them to actually practice what is stated in those laws, what is stipulated in the laws. Now, talking about the ICRC in Nigeria, the ICRC was in Nigeria during the Civil War, that is between 1967 and 1970. And then we came back again to Nigeria in 1988 and has been present ever since. Our work is currently focused on the humanitarian crisis in the northeastern, north central, and the south-south part of Nigeria due to the crisis that is being experienced over there. And we work hand in hand with the Nigerian Red Cross to provide emergency assistance services, such as provision of water supply facilities, hygiene facilities, even financial assistance to those that are in need. And we support the Nigerian health services, for example, in the provision of primary healthcare facilities and reproductive health services, and also rehabilitation services for disabled people, that is those in need of artificial limbs. We also help people affected by armed violence through distribution of essential household items, like provision of foodstuffs, for example. And we promote international humanitarian law, just like I explained in the previous slide, amongst parties to conflict. As long as we have access to any party to a conflict, we try to promote the adherence to these humanitarian laws, and we promote detainee welfare. We visit detainees in their holding facilities, we relay their concerns to authorities, and we work with the authorities. In some cases, we encourage the authorities to address the concerns of these detainees. And talking about the missing persons, clarifying the fate of the missing persons, we have a family reunification program, which is aimed at putting family members back in touch together, families that have been separated either due to the war or due to the crisis or whatever. We work together with the Nigerian Red Cross societies to bring them back together. And the core focus of the forensic unit of the ICRC, of course, is to promote the protection and respect for the dignity of the dead. Okay. Now, talking about the ICRC forensic activities in Nigeria, like I said, it's all about promoting the dignity of the dead, promoting effective management of the dead. The ICRC is using forensic sciences to strengthen its humanitarian response for the affected population, that is, the victims of the crisis in the northeastern region, the north central region, and even in the south region of the country. And we work with the authorities, we encourage the authorities to put facilities in place, to put measures in place to ensure the protection of the rights and dignity of the dead. That is for the forensic unit in the ICRC. And we work hand in hand with forensic practitioners and institutions to strengthen their capacity. That is through trainings. We have trainings tailored to the audience of the training. Like we have management of the dead trainings for body handlers, for example, for first responders, for the armed forces, those at the forefront of the crisis in the Northeast, those in charge of search and rescue, search and retrieval of human remains at the scene. So we work hand in hand with them through trainings, through infrastructural support, donation of items that will be needed, donation of PPEs, for example, body bags, and also we offer advisory services. Like we encourage the network of forensic practitioners, both at the national level, at the regional level, and at the global level. In case you need something, you can reach out and we try to link you up with who is going to be of better assistance. And the ICRC also works to develop guidance and recommendations for authorities and forensic institutions for the dignified management of the dead. Like recently, we were working with NEMA, for example, on the development of a mass fatality response plan that would work for Nigeria as a whole in case of a mass casualty, mass fatality incident. We're also working with a smaller group called the Forensic Working Group and the Federal Ministry of Health, developing policies and guidelines for forensic sciences in Nigeria, and also like reviewing the coroner's law for the country. Like we know Lagos State recently reviewed theirs and it has been implemented in the state. So we're also looking at having something like that in Abuja at the federation level and also at the state level. So we work with the ministries and relevant authorities to put such measures in place. Now, we've been talking about what the forensic unit is doing, family reunification, getting people together. This brings us to the concept of the missing persons. And in high CRC, we have this definition for missing persons. These are people, individuals whose families have no news about whether they are alive, whether they are dead, are they okay, where are they right now? They have no news and they've probably reported to an authority and declared them missing. Those are the people we are classifying in this category. And so many situations can result in a person being declared missing. It could be armed conflict situation, probably in the process of trying to escape from the conflict regions. The person was unfortunately caught in the crossfires, or in some cases, probably the person even left the region successfully and lost contact with the family members. We also, another situation that can result in a person being missing is disasters, natural disasters, even man-made disasters in some cases. Migration too, just like we said, you're leaving a place that you feel you're no longer safe and secure into a place you believe you're feeling more safe and secure, and in the process, lose contact with your loved ones, with your family members. So this is where the ICRC comes in. These situations, we try to bridge the gap. We try with our family reunification programs, with our forensic units to bring back the loved ones together, and for them, for the families that are looking for them to have a clarity on their fate, whether they are alive, whether they are safe, whether they are dead. If they are dead, if we can work together with the authorities for their remains to be returned, reunified with the family members. So, missing persons in Nigeria, this is based on the data collected by the ICRC, and I must specify that this data collected is mostly focused in the northeastern, north central region of Nigeria because that is like the main base of our operations. And by June 2021, the ICRC, together with the Nigerian Red Cross community, are actively handling cases of over 24,000 persons who have been declared missing by their relatives. Those are people that their relatives don't know what's up with them. They don't know if they're dead, they don't know if they're alive, they don't know where they are. So over 24,000 persons as at June 2021, and all of this is from the Northeast North Central region. And so far, 472 families of missing persons have received news about the whereabouts or fate of their loved ones. They've received news whether the person is alive and presently in a holding facility, in a camp for displaced persons, or unfortunately, in some cases, whether the person is dead. So 472 families have received such news. 58 children of vulnerable adults were reunited with their family members. That is about our family reunification program. And 329 families of missing persons received psychosocial, economic, or other relevant support. Just like I mentioned earlier, we provide support assistance relevant to the families in need. And 129 families have been identified to receive such support from the ICRC and the Nigerian Red Cross Society. Now, we're talking about how forensic sciences can be applied to clarifying the fate of missing persons. For missing persons, unfortunately, when a person goes missing, there is a very good chance that the person is dead. It could eventually lead into a death investigation. Like I think I was reading one of the papers that is being presented, I think, or one of the abstracts about a reunification that kind of happened in Lagos with the help of the Lagos State Forensic DNA Lab, where the bodies were retrieved from a septic tank. Analysis was done to identify the person and reunify the person back to the family members. That's the human remains, obviously. So for missing persons from any of the concepts listed, armed conflict, disaster, migration, or even other situations of violence, there is a chance that such a person is dead. And forensic sciences can be applied looking at it from two perspectives. The first perspective is the prevention of missing. This is not like we're going to stop anybody from getting missing, but this is by having standard procedures, having mechanisms in place, having processes in place to ensure that when we are presented with a disaster, when we are presented with an incident where human remains are there, there are processes and mechanisms in place to facilitate the identification and quick reunification with their loved ones. And also looking at it from another perspective, we can look at it as resolution of missing person cases. Like, okay, this person has already been declared missing, data has been collected. Eventually, when we're presented with a human remains and analysis is done, we can combine and compare those data to resolve the case that is already on ground. So that is the two perspectives we'll be looking at it from today, the preventive perspective and the resolution perspective. Now, what is the role of forensic sciences? We talked about the preventive measures, that is the adequate management of the dead. When we have processes in place, when we have mechanisms in place that are set to be employed when managing dead bodies, ranging from when you're notified that a body has been found or when you're notified that an incident has happened, you have your recovery processes and standard operating procedures in place. Standard operations for storage of even the collected remains pending identification or even investigation as the case may be, and possible temporary burial for the body. When all these mechanisms are in place already, we already reduce or minimize the risk of a body or a missing person case. We've reduced that risk. Now, one thing that is always important in forensic sciences is data collection. At every point in time, we're collecting data. At every stage, you're collecting data. From the scene, you're collecting data. From the family members, you're collecting data. From everybody, you're collecting data, because all of this data at the end of the day is what is going to be compared to be able to identify or clarify the fate and the identity of the missing person in question. So data collection cannot be overemphasized, and all appropriate precautions as identified by the WHO must be employed. This is not necessarily because infections can be gotten from the dead, but also to avoid transference of evidence. Transference of evidence? You don't want a body handler that is retrieving a body, and when the analysis is being done, you don't want to be having trace of the person's DNA, the body handler's DNA on the body. So that is what we mean by appropriate precautions, the appropriate personal protective equipment to be used while handling the dead. And like we said, recovery of human remains. By the time you're notified of an incident or of a human remain found somewhere, the recovery, as much as possible, we always encourage that trained personnel alone should be involved in such activities because different contexts present or would require different expertise. For example, the human remain is just lying there, probably a fresh incident. Appropriate personnel can recover. If it's a case of the human remains being already buried and you will need to have an exhumation, then appropriate personnel, appropriately trained experts should be deployed for such an activity. And it could also be a case of a submerged body, also an appropriate personnel for that is recommended. And we talk about the appropriate storage conditions, using appropriate coding and labeling systems and temperature for storage. Like I was seeing what the previous speaker, Dr. Sumari, posted on how evidence is being arranged in the Lagos State Forensic DNA Center. Adequate coding, the same thing applies also when storing human remains to avoid mix-ups, to avoid you mismatching the bodies eventually. So adequate coding right from the scene up to the storage facility is always encouraged, and the appropriate temperature too to avoid decomposition, early decomposition of the bodies. Then temporary burial can be also an option in cases where the facility is not enough, like the capacity of the facility is limited to handle more bodies, and temporary burial can be done, but that is only after the necessary investigation and data and information has been collected from the body. Now, one thing I also have to emphasize is chain of custody, and failure to ensure proper chain of custody could result in mismatching of human remains. So chain of custody from the scene to the person transporting the body to the temporary holding facility, to the storage of the body, and in case of a disposition, a burial, chain of custody has to be kept, and it should be easily, it should be something that can be retrieved at any time it's needed to confirm or to buttress the work that is being done. Now, when every activity is duly documented, we can prevent cases of missing persons. We can prevent cases of mismatching bodies and human remains. Okay, so what is the role of forensic sciences in the forensic human identification? Everything we've talked about previously, having the processes and the mechanisms in place, is all about a preventive method, preventing people from getting missing in the first place, having the right teams and processes and logistics in place. That is preventing. But now we already have a missing person. Okay, so how do we resolve this case? This is the resolution aspect now. We're talking about forensic human identification. And this generally refers to the application of scientific processes to the clarification of the identities of unknown and unidentified human remains. And when clarifying human identity, when you want to identify a person using scientific processes, obviously, like I've been talking about before, everything is all about data collection. You're collecting data at every point in time. Now, for this aspect, I'm going to divide the data collection into two. The first one is the antemortem data, and the second one is the postmortem data. Now, talking about the antemortem data, this includes all information about the missing person that can be provided by the family and acquaintances. This includes, but is not limited to, physical characteristics of the person. Is the person of average height? Is the person short? Is the person tall? Is the person light-skinned or dark-skinned? Like physical characteristics, general characteristics of the person that the loved ones can provide. Photographs, in some cases, you have a picture of the person. It's possible the person is not there and we'll need a picture to be able to identify the person. DNA sample. If we're taking why DNA sample is part of the antemortem data is because if you're collecting DNA samples from the human remains, for example, you need a reference sample to be able to compare it with. And that can only be gotten from relatives, from siblings, from family members, from the children. So DNA sample is also important. Circumstances of disappearance. Was the person involved? Probably, where did the person go? Where did the person tell you he or she was going? Like there was a case that was really making the news in the south region of Nigeria about a lady that went for a job interview and then she was brutally murdered because the family members were able to give circumstances leading to her disappearance. It was able to facilitate and help them find the remains of the lady in question. Now, also medical history. Has the person had a recent surgery? Is there an implant in the body that we need to know? Probably even dental fillings or whatever. All of this information are classified as antemortem data that can help in clarifying the fate of missing persons. Now, let's also talk about postmortem data. This includes all information obtainable from the human remains, and they help to clarify the cause and manner of death and also to facilitate the identification of the remains in question. This includes all data collected at the scene and at the morgue. At the scene, you can see blood spatters, for example. Forensic photography comes into place in this particular data to see the position of the body, how the body was kept. All of this will, at the end of the day, help in answering whatever question is going to be on the investigator's mind. And also at the morgue, the information that will be collected by the pathologists and other forensic specialists that will be assisting in clarifying the identity of the person. Now, identification, forensic human identification is a multidisciplinary process. Not one person can do it. Not just one expert can do it. Like you're seeing from the slides shown previously by Dr. Sumari, the DNA center is there. They have other units that are still coming up. So because at the end of the day, it is very broad. So many people come together to give their expertise to be able to solve a case. So it is a multidisciplinary process that can include all of the processes listed below or one, as the case may be, or as the capacity on ground avails you to. It includes autopsy, which is going to help identify the cause and manner of death, usually led by a forensic pathologist. Fingerprint analysis, which can also be used to identify persons. DNA analysis by a forensic geneticist. Dentition analysis, which is usually by a forensic odontologist. Biological profile, in some cases, what you're presented with is skeletal remains. Biological profile by forensic anthropologist. And a radiographer, too, can always be employed in facilitating the forensic human identification. Now, like I said, all of this data collected, all the antemortem data, all the postmortem data, all of this data needs to be collected and reconciled for a positive identification to happen. And I have to mention that just one process might not necessarily be enough to positively identify a person. The higher the number of tests, the higher the number of analysis, the higher the data that is being collected, the higher the probability or the better your chances of positively identifying the human remains in question. And this, like I said, involves various disciplines and experts. It is not just the pathologist that will be doing the job. It is not just the anthropologist. It is not just the odontologist. If possible, all of them can work together. You have multiple results that will back up your eventual identification. Now, what are the challenges faced? Forensic sciences, yes, we know can help clarify the fate of missing persons. But what are the challenges we are facing in Nigeria as a country? We don't have database for missing persons. We don't even know how many persons is missing in the whole country. How many of the cases have been resolved? How many are still missing right now? What led to it? We don't have database for missing and also for unidentified bodies. We've seen cases where a person will say, "Oh, my relative is missing," and then one day during anatomy class, we were presented with this person's body for analysis. We don't have the database for this because if we had the database, then we could have compared and identified and reunified with their family and loved ones who are looking for them. So lack of database is a challenge. Lack of adequate manpower and forensic experts. We are currently lagging in that department. So we need enough people. Like most of the experts that I listed, anthropologists, odontologists, we don't have them. Even if we have them, probably like one or two scattered everywhere. So we need more people who can actually do the job. Then outdated or inexistent laws for the medical legal systems. We need laws that encourage forensic sciences. We need laws that encourage the application of forensic sciences in Nigeria, in caseworks, in humanitarian settings. We need laws that encourage these things. And also funding. There's no way we can talk about all these things without talking about money. Everywhere you go to, there's no money, there's no money. We need money to be able to make these things work. Like the presentation from the previous speaker, you see most of the gadgets that were provided in the laboratory, the trainings and everything. All of these things cost money. So we need money and adequate equipment. I can also include facility in that particular point because some of these people are trained, yes. Where can they actually put their expertise to work? They need where they can work. They need tools that they can work with. So these are some of the challenges that we've been able to identify and our recommendations for addressing these challenges. We need to be able to pick government's interests because when the government is interested, they come up with initiatives that would help to better the populace. Like in Lagos State, for example, as a good example, the government is interested. The government supported the development of the Lagos State Forensics DNA Center. And because of that, we can see the good work that is being done in Lagos State. We need to be able to replicate that nationwide at the central and at all the state levels. So we need government interest and government initiatives. We need experts to be able to collaborate, expert law enforcement and other government sectors. We need all of them to collaborate. Still using Lagos State as an example, the DNA lab, the forensic DNA lab is collaborating with the law enforcement agencies and with the necessary government authorities. And the collaboration is what we see that is yielding positive results, just like this one that we are having right now. So we need more of such collaborations and establishment of the database for missing persons and unidentified bodies. I have to mention that the cases of missing persons is a humanitarian issue and it is a big deal. We need families to be able to know, have a clear understanding in the definitive, the fate of their missing loved ones, the fate of their relatives. They need to know if they are alive. They need to know if they are dead so that they can grieve once and for all. They need to have closure. So this is a big deal, and this is why the ICRC is pushing for this. If they are dead, okay, let's put in processes. Let the forensic team come in and support the government to facilitate the identification so that they can be reunified with their family. Let the family bury them if they want to. So all of these are part of our recommendations. We need a review of the medical legal system. Lagos State recently reviewed their coroner's law, and that is what is being implemented in the state, which is why forensics can actually come into play. We also need that at the national level. We need our laws to be reviewed. We need laws to encourage the use of forensic sciences in caseworks and in humanitarian settings. So we need such laws, and we need more awareness programs like this one. Now I'm seeing that we have about 70 something participants. For something like this going on in a country as large as Nigeria, we should be talking about thousands of participants. So we need more awareness programs for people to know that this is happening and this is happening in Nigeria, and even more can happen with the right support. So we need more awareness programs and we need more educational programs. Our universities need to start offering these courses because when they offer the courses, then they encourage more people to study it. So our universities need to work on accreditation programs. Like I know of University of Ibadan, and today, just from attending this program, I'm aware of University of Benin, for example. So we need more educational programs to encourage our youth. Not everybody will have the opportunity to be able to go abroad to study these courses, especially because it involves a lot of money. So if we can make it homegrown too, then it is an advantage to us in Nigeria. Now, in conclusion, the summary of what I've been saying since, when a person is declared missing by the family members, it's possible the person is alive, of which we all hope the person is alive, which is why people hold on to the chance of meeting the person again. But we can't rule out the possibility of the person being dead, and then it becomes a death investigation. These things happen. Two ways that I've identified that forensic sciences can be applied is in the prevention of the missing persons. In case of a mass fatality incident, for example, processes are already in place to facilitate quick identification of the persons. And also for the resolution. Okay, this person has been declared missing. Now we are presented with the body. We need to have experts, specialists people with technical know-hows to help identify, to facilitate the identification of the bodies, and to help the families to have closure. So this is how we as ICRC, this is how I feel that forensic sciences can be applied to the clarification of the fate of missing persons. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to give this presentation. If you have any question, you can probably type in the chat box during the Q&A session. Myself and my colleague Juan Manuel will be able to address your concerns, your questions to the best of our knowledge. Thank you so much, organizers, and have a good day.